Welcome back, guys. So today we're going to be talking about 20 of the weirdest anxiety symptoms that are not talked about. And trust me, there are far more weird anxiety symptoms that I'm not going to be able to fit on this video. I just want you guys to know that anxiety can cause just about anything and everything. It can make you feel like your left foot's heavier than the right, and you're going to do some research and you're not going to find much information, if anything, on that, right? It can make your left pinky feel some type of way, or it can make your right eye feels so much fuller than the left eye. It can pretty much make you feel any symptom and sensation. It can mimic anything that a disease can cause. So things can get very, very weird. And I know what it's like to have an anxiety symptom or, something that's going on or a sensation, and you do your research and you're trying to find, you just want to see something, you're not trying to look up what bad things it could be, but you're trying to find something that says anxiety can cause it, or somebody in a Facebook group or Reddit or something like that. So you can be like, oh, okay, I feel a little bit better. And then you can't find nothing and you start to panic and you feel alone. So hopefully this video helps you out, guys, with feeling less alone. Again, there's going to be some weird ones that are not mentioned here. I just want you to know that you're not alone if you have a weird sensation that anxiety is causing you and you can't find a lot of information on it. So I want to start off with the question of the day, and I want you guys to put down below, what are your weirdest anxiety symptoms? Name all of the ones. If you want to name 2, that's fine. If you want to name 20, that's even better, because I want you guys to be able to go through the comments and relate with other people. That can help so much in the beginning, okay? We just don't want to feel alone in the beginning. That's how everything starts. Then we work on acceptance. Then we obviously need to get our reassurance from a doctor. Then we need to start working on the recovery process. But in the beginning, finding out you're not alone is super important. We're going to go ahead and jump into this, guys. So the first one, guys, is going to be burning skin sensations, sensitive skin, nerve pain. I had all these at different points, more so just the sensitive skin and the nerve pains from an overstimulated nervous system. So you're going to feel these things a lot more. And for a lot of people, unfortunately, that leads to burning skin sensations. Now, this can be localized. For me, it seemed to be a little bit more localized in different areas. It can happen on any part of your body. The burning skin sensations for me, luckily, and my heart goes out to you if you're dealing with this constantly, talk about horrible, but they would be during more extreme anxiety and panic situations. But I could have a couple of days where I would have sensitive skin and nerve pain. I would actually think that I was getting sick. You know how before you get sick and you're about to catch a fever, you have that nerve pain, basically where even like putting on a t-shirt is uncomfortable and stuff like that. I would get that more often than just burning sensations, but all of it's caused by an overstimulated nervous system. It's one you don't hear about as much. Might be one of the most common ones on here, however. Number 2, frequent hiccups. A very weird one, but also very frustrating. I didn't get the cute little hiccups. I got the talking about I'd have to see myself out of the room because I was embarrassed and didn't want to annoy somebody, because I'm sorry, my hiccups, whenever they get going, they sound annoying, but I just can't help how I hiccup. And for some of us that have the loud hiccups, you've tried to contain it. It's painful to contain it. It's already painful to have them the way that we have them. But yeah, frequent hiccups. Now, there's a few things that can be going on. One of the things that led to mine that was caused by anxiety was really bad heartburn, because anxiety can make heartburn worse, and acid reflux and stuff like that would cause me to have hiccups. A lot of times this would ruin my dinner, or I'd have to just stop eating and eat later because it would happen during eating. So like the heartburn, the indigestion, things like that, but also trapped air, trapped gas. We also produce a lot more gas whenever we're anxious than when we're not. The rapid, shallow breathing, so panic attacks are just the natural rapid breathing that we're doing throughout the day subconsciously. And another one, a big one that can happen, is an overstimulated diaphragm. So it could be a combination of those. I think for me, it was just depending on what day and what was going on, it would lead to the hiccups. And again, this is not only a weird one, but it was an embarrassing one that happened quite often. I mean, I went for stretches of weeks where it would happen every single day. So frequent hiccups is another weird one that you just don't see a lot or hear about a lot. Number 3, cold hands and cold feet. I try to mention this one a lot. I think numbness and tingling, which is caused by the same thing, is one that I talk about a little bit more. But I always felt like my hands were a lot colder than, other people's or, than normal. Same thing with my feet. If I didn't have my socks on, I always felt like I needed an extra blanket on my feet. And hands, I was just always rubbing them to warm them up. And I mean, this could be during the summer, which is really odd. It didn't have to be necessarily cold for this to happen. And what's happening with this is redirected blood flow. The same reason that you get numbness and tingling, less blood flow in our extremities. I mean, you can feel this all over your nose, obviously, your feet, your face, but your feet, your toes, your phalanges, your hands, things like that, your lower parts of your arms and legs can feel this. Those are the areas where blood flow is kind of leaving. Your blood's going to your most vital organs and muscles to help you fight and run away. So it's serving a purpose, but it leaves these guys hanging and can lead to the cold hands and feet, and then obviously numbness and tingling, which is a more commonly talked about, discussed symptom. Number 4, guys, constant yawning, another weird one, and then sometimes slightly embarrassing. There were days that I wish I could have this problem, because there were days that I was overly breath conscious and I had just tightness in my diaphragm and I couldn't get that satisfying breath. And I just wished I would try to yawn and I still couldn't get it. And then there were days that I just couldn't stop yawning to get that satisfying breath, Whenever we're doing a lot of rapid, shallow breathing, sometimes our body will overcompensate by yawning. So some days you can have a day where you just can't get that deep satisfying breath or yawn. And then there's going to be days where you can't stop yawning. And in between, you're doing the same rapid, shallow breathing. And your body's just in the mood to overcompensate. And with the yawning, I'm telling you, it would happen all day. And when it got to be embarrassing was whenever I would be having conversations and I was nervous that people were going to think I was bored with them. Because, somebody be having a serious conversation. I'm like, I'd do that like 4 times within like 3 minutes. That's how often it would happen when it got bad. So yawning's another weird one. Number 5, ringing in the ear or tinnitus. Some people call it tinnitus. I really don't know which is the correct way of pronouncing that. I've always said tinnitus. Sounds right to me. Somebody can educate me and correct me on that. But it's basically the ringing in the ear. Anxiety really does affect our inner ear, which also is the reason that we feel dizzy, unbalanced or off-balanced, coordination issues, lightheaded, things like that, because it affects our inner ear. So it's also going to cause ringing in the ear. It can cause tension and pressure that can lead to this. Now, again, this is another one that some people just have constantly. They hear a high-pitched tone or a little whistle or a ring that just kind of stays there, or just hours a day. Mine would be like, you've seen a war movie where somebody throws a flashbang or a grenade or something like that and it goes off and you're ding. It would last for 5 seconds and then maybe 10 seconds of it just kind of trailing off and getting quieter. And that would happen a lot. It could happen during panic. It could happen whenever I wasn't panicking. It just definitely happened so much more whenever I was going through anxiety. I still get that occasionally to this day. It just happens. I went through a lot with my inner ear. Whenever I was a child, I had to have tubes put in my ear. Both ears. I had chronic ear infections when I was little, so I've had bursted eardrums, so I'm sure some of that leads to that. But yeah, the ringing in the ear, just like you see it in the movies, in the war movies, that's what it sounded like to me. It would be really loud. But for some people, you can have this chronically, 24/7, if anxiety is what's leading to it. But get an opinion from a doctor when it comes to that. Just, make sure there's nothing else leading to that. But anxiety, I'm telling you, I've talked to people that have it all day, every day. Number 6, another weird one, but scary whenever it happens, is eye floaters. Whenever we are anxious, and again, you don't have to be in panic mode for any of these, we bring in more light. So that's going to cause things like the light sensitivity where you feel like you need sunglasses when you leave the house. It's also going to bring more light into the point to where you're seeing debris in your eyes, and that's what these floaters are. They're little tiny, I wouldn't say microscopic, but bigger than that, but just tiny, 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 little bitty squigglies, little shapes, maybe just little dark spots. It doesn't take up your whole vision or anything like that, but you can just tell it's something weird, a little thing. And when you notice it for the first time because of all the light, it's scary. The truth is, and what probably most eye doctors would tell you, is that that's been there for quite some time. You just didn't notice it because there wasn't that much light coming in. But now that we're anxious and we have extra light coming in, and which, by the way, that extra light coming in is so we can survive, so we can run or fight, assess everything better. But now we're having light sensitivity, and you know, we're seeing debris in our eye. That's how crazy that can get. But eye floaters is another one. Again, common but weird. A lot of these are common. So I want you guys to know that there's a lot of people that have these. It's not necessarily rare symptoms. They're common. They're just odd. You wouldn't think anxiety would cause this, and they're not talked about as much, but still common. Every one of these guys that I mentioned, there are tons of people that I've spoken to that have had these, okay? Number 7, this is another weird one. They're all weird, by the way. Dry mouth or dry throat. This can also lead to you having extra phlegm in your throat. If you've noticed me over the past few days, whenever I've made videos, and I'm probably going to do it again, I have to clear my throat. There's phlegm in here. Now, mine comes from a sickness I got about a week ago, and I'm still kind of recovering, and I got a dry throat and some phlegm going on. But this can happen whenever you just have anxiety. And from what I've read, the information that I've gotten, whenever we're, anxious or have chronic anxiety, we produce less saliva. So now we're going to have cotton mouth, and dry throat. So then you can start having an overcompensation of phlegm in your throat. Now you feel like you're constantly clearing your throat, or you need to have some moisture via water or something to drink. So that's one. I would have that off and on for sure. Again, it wasn't something that I had all the time, nor was it really one that I would just get scared of. And, if I didn't get scared of something, it didn't last a long time for the most part. And then sometimes I would get lucky where one scared me, and for whatever reason, it just didn't show back up. But dry mouth and throat's another common one. Cotton mouth is another way of describing it. And then, you can get into a habit. I have spoken to a couple people that have dealt with this, where you feel like you have to constantly clear your throat. That can become its own habit, and then that can continue. Anxiety can cause a lot of these side habits. So number 8, hearing your heartbeat in your pillow. This would happen to me all the time. I had really bad heart anxiety. I know my blood pressure was higher, but I definitely remember hearing my heart in my pillow way more when I had anxiety than before or after. I don't notice it as much. I have to really pay attention and tune in to hear it, right? But guess what? You're hypersensitive. You're hyper aware. You feel things that other people can't feel as much, including something like the heartbeat in your ear. You are fixated on your heart. So your mind's looking for that, right? You're looking to hear it. And some of it can be also higher blood pressure. And, this would happen at night when my anxiety was even worse. So obviously my heart rate's going to be faster. I'm going to be having palpitations. My blood pressure is going to be higher. I'm more hypersensitive. There's less distractions. I'm tuned in and fixated on my heart. I'm assessing constantly and scanning. So yeah, I'm going to hear that thing all the time. So I remember so many nights I would just lay on my back, even though that's not how I wanted to sleep. I would lay on my back so I wouldn't have to hear it and freak out, because then I'm like, oh my God, it sounds like it's skipping beats, or it's pounding really hard. Am I going to have a heart attack? So that's another one. Number 9, random jerks and jolts, man. I've talked about this a few times on the channel. Obviously jolts, like the falling asleep at night, that's a little bit more common. Hell, you can have that when you don't have anxiety. But obviously I'll just go ahead and mention it. Like the jolts at night, you'll jolt awake whenever you're falling asleep. That's your body trying to keep you awake. It doesn't want you to fall asleep, because then maybe the enemy or, the tiger will get you. Just like if you're in war and you're in a trench and you're like falling asleep and it's raining and everything like that, and you jolt awake, that's because your body wants you to be, and your mind and body wants you to be alert in case the enemy comes storming over the hill, right? So it's there to protect you. Well, the random jerks is what is really something that I want to tune in on. And it's just like a misfire of the nervous system. You know how you get like twitches and things like that? I'm talking about when it would be like a full body jerk. And this happened to me all the time. Doesn't ever happen anymore. But I'm talking about that much, that exaggerated. You know what I mean? Like, bam, like I just remember it always being like my shoulders, and I would do like this. I mean, sometimes it was so aggressive that it was like, I would almost get like borderline whiplash in my neck, like that. Very weird. That one did scare me. I was like, man, like, do I have something neurologically wrong? Am I going to have like a seizure one day or something like that? So that's where I would get my full body jerk or my body jerks. But I mean, you can obviously get it anywhere. And of course, like a lot of these things, it comes down to our nervous system. So random jerks and jolts. Yeah, so number 10, guys, we're halfway, guys. Hot flashes. This is primarily due to dilated blood vessels, especially if you're in fight or flight. And fight or flight for me, guys, is whenever this would happen. I had this all the time. Hot flashes, pretty much the same thing, just different terminology. I remember feeling this instantly whenever I would get anxious. I remember my chest would get tight, heart rate would shoot up, face would flush, it would actually get red, and then sweat would happen right after. I'd feel pins and needles and numbness, okay? And all this could happen within 5 seconds. So hot flashes. I mean, think about it. How many times have you been embarrassed and your face got red? Excuse me, told you got to clear my throat a lot. How many times have you been embarrassed, or you saw somebody get kind of angry, or saw somebody under stress, their face gets red? That's what's happening, okay? And again, you don't have to be full panic mode, but, you know, imagine a lot of these symptoms, it's like revving the engine, okay? So it can obviously happen when you have panic attacks, but it can happen throughout the day chronically from just revving up the anxiety engine. Number 11, guys, itchy skin, okay? Yeah, this is another odd one, okay? And you don't have to have rashes. For me, I just remember there were a lot of nights I was just tossing and turning, would have the restless leg syndrome. And for me, it would just be primarily my legs would itch. And this scared the crap out of me. You know, I was horribly bad about Googling and researching and then what information I would find about it. You know, there'd be some articles that would say anxiety, of course. If you look, you'll find it. But of course, I was going to gravitate towards the bad stuff. So I'm thinking like, oh my God, do I have some type of a blood cancer or something like that? So if you deal with that one, guys, that's common with anxiety. A lot of people have it. Again, it's just not something that there's a ton of information about. Can you find information out there? Sure. But again, it's not going to be your top 10 anxiety symptom. Excuse me. Number 12, bloating or trapped gas. This is another weird one. When we are anxious or when we have chronic anxiety, we just produce more gas. This is another uncomfortable one that can make you feel vulnerable. It can be embarrassing if you can't hold it. It also can be embarrassing if your stomach starts to growl because of it. I was pretty good at holding it, you know, at least until I could go to the restroom or excuse myself somewhere to do it. But like whenever I would hold it, my stomach would just start making these loud noises. I mean, really loud, like I hadn't eaten in days. So yeah, our body produces a lot more gas whenever we are anxious or chronically anxious. I remember this would happen to me for a period of months. I remember my IBS really flared up, and this is whenever I was really worrying about like digestive cancer, because this was happening every morning. I would wake up, I'd have really bad gas, and it wasn't easy for it to get out. It would take 3 to 4 hours for it to get out of me. You know what I mean? And that happened every day. And I was getting really worried that I had some type of an obstruction that was like keeping it from going out. There was nothing I wanted more than to be able to just like release all that. But it would take hours for it to leave. So yeah, that's another one that people don't think about a whole lot. 13, phantom sounds. Now for me, this is primarily whenever I was sleeping. I'm not saying it can't happen when you're super anxious and jumpy and alert and all that stuff, or zoned out, and then you can hear these. But for me, whenever I'd wake up with jolts, I could hear a loud alarm, a ringing, a tiger roaring, a siren, a honk, something like that. It would happen a lot. Phone ringing or something. Really scary, really weird. Sometimes there was no even dream associated with it. I would just hear that. It's so wild how the brain will just make you hear one of those specific types of sounds. But I would have that. Again, I guess it's just something to also wake you up and get you to be prepared for battle, right? To fight or to run away. Jaw popping and TMJ is another thing. It's just like tension in the jaw area and clenching due to anxiety. And for some people, they do this at night just all the time. It can lead to your jaw being sore. But for some people, even weirder, it can be popping sound. You can even hear it, but you can definitely feel it. Now, for me, I didn't really experience this. I would feel more ear popping and stuff like that if I moved my jaw around. That could have been something that led to that. And there were mornings that I would wake up sometimes and my jaw would be a little sore, or I'd have like some sore teeth. Even thought about getting a mouth guard at one point, but you know, I dealt with that for a little bit, but I never had like this crazy jaw popping. But there are people that I've talked to that deal with that. That's how bad their tension gets in their jaw. So that's another one. Number 15, difficulty swallowing. Again, my heart goes out to you if you deal with this, okay? Some of it has to do with tension. Well, that's how it starts, right? For most people that I've talked to. And again, this is one that luckily I didn't deal with all the time. Whenever I would have panic, whenever it would start, I would feel like my throat would close up and it would feel like I was kind of choking. I couldn't swallow and I couldn't get a breath in. It really did feel like somebody had like grabbed my throat. And sometimes my panic attacks would start like that. And it would take like a few seconds for me to kind of gather myself and to kind of relax enough to where I could actually just swallow. Now imagine dealing with this all the time. And imagine what meal times have to be like. Some of you are like, I don't have to imagine it. I deal with this all the time. I've talked to people where they've lost a lot of weight because it's hard for them to keep anything down or to eat, without feeling like they have to choke. Or in some cases, they can develop like a reflex and, cough their food up and everything like that. It seems like for a lot of people, and I'm not an expert on this, but I just wanted to make sure I mentioned it. So if you're dealing with it, you're not alone. I would suspect that this starts as either, again, having a panic attack like I did, or you just have straight up globus hystericus, that lump in the throat feeling. And then we have this weird deal where we try to eat and then we become then afraid of it. And then once we have this fear and we have this association tied with it, then that takes over. So I've noticed with people that have this, and I've talked to a couple of people, I've helped a couple of people, it really does come down to letting go of control and trusting in yourself and believing that you can keep things down or swallow, and just building that trust with your subconscious to eventually kind of not only make the tension go away, but to help this reflex, calm down. But that can take time to break down. So if you're dealing with that, be patient. But I think it really starts with your belief system, believing that you can do this. Exposing yourself to eating. Some people will just stop eating altogether, and that doesn't help the situation. I would say try every day to attempt to do, to eat something, even if it's small, even if it's liquids or a protein shake or something, and try to just work your way up from there, even if it's a couple bites. Don't skip meals. And then also to build up your belief system, obviously. Build up your belief system, your trust, and things will get better with that. Number 16, random goosebumps, and this is our hair follicles contracting, especially during fight or flight mode. I would get this on and off. We can get goosebumps when we get excited or whenever we hear something cool, but we can also get them whenever we're scared. I guess that's the Goosebumps books or whatever. Number 17, stress sweat. This is a weird one and a very frustrating one. I remember there was a point in time where I had to take a extra t-shirt and deodorant and cologne and stuff with me, an extra hat and all that, because I would have stress sweat. The thing about stress sweat is it stinks. It's not your normal sweat. Before anxiety and then today, like the way that I am now, if I go outside and I sweat and everything like that, like if I come in, I really don't smell that bad. I think it comes down to like your eating habits and maybe your physical activity and everything like that. I just don't have a lot of stinky sweat. At least I don't believe so. Unless it's just been sitting out forever and then I take my shirt off and it's laying in the floor for a couple of days or something like that. But other than that, no, but whenever I was going through anxiety, that stuff stunk, man. It was nasty. It smelled like ammonia or something, So apparently we have a different type of sweat whenever we get anxious or stressed out. So that's another weird one and a frustrating one, an embarrassing one when you have to just be prepared for, bring in extra clothes and stuff like that. And I would get that chronically, but also whenever I would have the hot flashes, for instance, I would instantly get beads of sweat on my face and on my body. My armpits would sweat more. Another natural deal, but I guess one that's just not talked about a whole lot. Number 18. Oh, one of my personal favorites, sleep paralysis. Now, I've dealt with this on and off throughout my life. This is another example on how anxiety can make something maybe that you already dealt with worse. For instance, like if you have migraines and you have anxiety, those could be more often and worse. So maybe some of that plays into this, but I know I've read into anxiety causing this for people that never had it before. Sleep paralysis, all right? So imagine you're laying there and you wake up and you can't move your body, okay? You can hear other people walking in and out of the room. You can hear conversations. You left the TV on. You can see the TV and you can see everything going on. You know you're not dreaming for a fact. But you can't move any of your body. And then in the beginning when this happens, when you're really scared of this crap, you try to talk and then you notice you can't talk. And then you're like, oh, yeah, you can like hear inside your ears, like you can hear yourself doing, oh, but you can't even make words come out. So it's almost like your throat's even paralyzed, or your vocal cords are paralyzed to the point to where you can't make out words, you know? And you could be laying there. I mean, for me, luckily, I didn't lay there for minutes at a time. I think for most of us, it's a few seconds to, you know, maybe 15, 20, 25, 30 seconds or something like that. And then eventually we'll start to be able to move our fingers and our toes, and then we start to slowly come back to life, and then we can make, you know, we can say what we need to say or whatever. But by that point, we're not freaking out. We're at least like thankful that we're waking up. I would have that a lot, especially if I took naps. Naps became a no-go for me after a while, even though I wasn't getting a lot of sleep. I always encourage people to maybe try to get a nap if they're not getting any sleep at all. But for me, I didn't do it because of sleep paralysis. And the next thing that I'm talking about at number 19, vivid nightmares or night terrors. And I would have these throughout the night, obviously, but I would have them, especially if I took a nap. It was an automatic nightmare, or multiple nightmares if I was stubborn and tried to go back to sleep as if I hadn't learned my lesson. But vivid nightmares. I've always had vivid dreams, things like that ever since I was a child. But I had a lot more good dreams whenever I was a child, mixed in at least. Whenever I had really bad anxiety, you could just tell that I was stressed, and I dealt with a lot of negativity, a lot of fear. I would just have the worst nightmares, and they were all, I mean, I could make horror movies just seem like child's play. Just really graphic stuff. I'm not going to go into all of it. Just the worst thing that you can imagine, I would dream it. And I would have that a lot. So it just shows the state of our mind, our subconscious. Very common, no, but I guess that's something a lot of people don't talk about. Number 20, this is a really freaking weird one. It's kind of an example on how anxiety can just cause or mimic or disrupt anything. I put down here changes to speech. That's the best way I could word it. Anything from like you're stuttering a lot, you're mixing up words, slurring. I've always had difficulty saying that word. I don't know why, but slurring your words. I would do that. And once that started happening, guys, I told you yesterday in that video, I was really scared of like strokes and stuff like that. Anytime my speech started getting messed up, or I'd stutter, or I'd get tongue-tied, I'd mix up a word, or I'd slur my words or something like that, like I would start to think that I was having a stroke. And then like any other symptom, guys, if you start to worry about stuttering, if you start to worry about slurring your words, mixing up words, getting tongue-tied, I'm sure there's other ways to describe changes to your speech, but you name it, it can happen again and again and again, just like any other symptom. All the ones that I mentioned here, this is just anxiety being able to cause it. And hopefully I kind of gave some information on how anxiety can cause it to an extent. I know I could spend 10 minutes on each of these. But another component with all these, once fear takes over, that's enough to keep it going. You can keep this thing going for days, weeks, or months, you know. And that's how it was for me whenever I got afraid of a symptom. That's whenever it really took over. But if you made it this far in the video, please go down below in the comment section. I want you to put in all caps, anxiety can get weird. Anxiety can get weird. If you want more help, guys, check out my course, Elite Anxiety Bootcamp. That course has got you covered if you want to get away from physical symptoms like this and move towards recovery. I'm going to put that down below in the first pinned comment and in the description. I'm going to read you a testimony real quick. So about a month and a half ago, I developed GAD. It was every day I'd wake up with extreme anxiety that would last most of the day. This being new to me, I started freaking out, not knowing what to do. As I started looking things up on YouTube, I came across Trey Jones' videos. I saw that he had an Elite Anxiety Bootcamp, so figuring it couldn't hurt, I went ahead and got the course. Let me tell you, if you want to beat anxiety, get this course. It was extremely helpful in understanding what anxiety really is and how to start the recovery process. I really don't know what I would have done without it. You can tell he really put the time and effort into this course, and if you follow all the steps that he teaches you, you will see insane results. I strongly recommend this course to anyone that suffers from anxiety, especially if you want to overcome it. Thanks again, Trey. So be a part of that if you haven't been able to get that course yet. Very affordable, very extensive. It can help you out. Also, my coaching information is down below if you're interested in getting on the phone with me and allowing me to help you in your journey. Please subscribe if you're new, guys. More videos coming tomorrow. If you didn't see yesterday's video, go check that out. A really cool video. I think you'll like it. And yeah, I will talk to you soon, guys. Bye.